Good evening and welcome to our first live event of the year. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Donald Leggett, Head of Investor Relations at London South East, and I'm your host for this evening. Well, throughout 2022, we'll be working in partnership with a large Canadian broker, Red Cloud Financial Securities. We'll already bring you some of the most interesting mining stocks on AIM. We showcase some great IPOs like CleanTech Lithium, who you'll see tonight. Now, London South East will be bringing you a regular flow of interesting Canadian mining stocks throughout the year, all Red Cloud Financial Services clients. Every webinar will include a Canadian miner, and when news breaks, we'll be interviewing them as well. Canadian miners are renowned for discovering useful minerals and metals, which then go on to become big mines. And we want to tap into those opportunities for you and with you, which takes us to our third CEO tonight, Nolan Peterson. He's the CEO at TSXV listed World Copper, who are exploring for copper in Chile and Arizona. And before then, you'll hear from Colin Harrington, and he's the most amazing CEO at Zephyr Energy, who continue to pursue an ambitious growth strategy. And likewise, Poolbeg Pharma CEO Jeremy Skillington, he's got a whole bundle of new licenses he's going to talk to you about. And after World Copper, we hear from Aldo Boitano, CEO at soon to IPO CleanTech Lithium, a really interesting lithium story. Each CEO gets 30 minutes to make their investment case, with around 18 minutes spent talking to slides, and then we take questions from the audience. And for those investors who can't make it tonight, why not summarize events and post your views on our London South East company chat board pages, as I know you guys do all the time anyway. And at the risk of stating the obvious, our bulletin boards are watched by CEOs and everyone in the financial community. Many more users watch than write. So those who write do influence sentiment and can really make a difference. If you think you might like to sponsor our webinar series, why not get in touch? Our next dates are on the lec.co.uk events tab on the website. Our first company tonight is Zephyr Energy, who are rapidly growing the business with a series of accretive deals. Colin and the team are delivering a buy and build strategy in the Williston Basin, developing a non-operated oil and gas portfolio there. And the latest proposed deal for $36 million of Williston Basin assets is to be paid for by a £12 million placing and also a $28 million debt facility. The plan, more or less, is to use those non-operating revenues to pay down debt and to drill and further explore their main asset, the main game, which is the Paradox Basin in Utah. I'm sure Colin will tell us all about that tonight, but we're so delighted to have you live once again from the United States.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think you got the story right there. I'm not sure how much more I need to tell, but
we'll just stop there, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Donald. And thanks to everybody watching. I'm cognizant that people are taking time out of their evenings to spend here with us tonight. So we appreciate that and don't take it lightly. Let me go ahead and tee up the slides here. Tonight, I know most of you or many of you will know the story already, but for those of you who don't, we'll give a quick corporate overview, walk you through the two key parts of our company, which are the non-operated portfolio and the operated asset that provides most of our growth. Walk you through some of our thoughts around ESG and steps we're taking there, and then give you an overall summary. Before we get into it at all, though, it's always important. I always try to cover this right up front. We are a company that was founded on two core values, two key principles in pursuit of one ambitious goal. Those core values are to always be responsible stewards of our investors' capital and to be responsible stewards of the environment in which we work. Using those as a framework, we are going after our goal, which is ambitious, but we've made excellent steps over the last 2 years to get there. And that is to open up the next prolific onshore US oil and gas resource play. I'll walk you through how the combination of our assets help us pursue that one key goal. So we're an oil and gas company, 100% focused on the Rocky Mountain region in the US, and we do everything, all of our development, through a carbon neutral lens, which is very rare in this industry, as you know. We're developing a significant operated asset in the Paradox Basin, Utah, and we also own a series of non-op interests in the Williston Basin, which is North Dakota and Montana. I think of the company as two pieces. They're the growth assets, which are the Paradox Basin. We have 37,000 acres, a majority of which has 3D seismic and extensive data from underneath that seismic, logs, cores, pressure test data, and recent production test data from a well we've just drilled and tested. This production test was hugely successful, so much so that we were constrained at the facilities from producing it at its peak, but we got over 1,000 barrels a day of oil equivalent from that first test. This was the first time a modern hydraulic stimulation of a horizontal well was used in the Paradox Basin. We think it was a great proof of concept to open up a wider development across 9 reservoir zones and across the 1 billion barrels that we believe is in place under our leasehold alone. So that's our growth side. Underpinning that is our value strategy, where we have been making non-operated investments in low risk, high margin wells in the Williston Basin. We focus on production and near-term drilling opportunities. We look for production with low acquisition costs and very high margins. And in this environment, certainly that is very achievable. And we use the cash flow from that business to fund additional Paradox drilling or to do additional acquisitions in the Williston. We completed 4 acquisitions in the Williston last year. We've got the 5th and largest one that's scheduled to complete mid-February. Right now, this portfolio is 15 wells, about 650 barrels a day, and that number is growing. When we complete the Kaiser acquisition in mid-February, we'll have over 1,750 barrels from the non-operated portfolio alone to dovetail with what we do in the Paradox. As Donald mentioned, we just did a placing to fund this acquisition and to fund additional drilling CapEx and some infrastructure and equipment costs in the Paradox. We issued just under 13 million pounds of equity that will go alongside a plain vanilla reserve-backed loan of 20 million pounds, just over 20 million pounds, to help facilitate the production acquisition that we're doing. In terms of where that leaves the company, a corporate overview, closing price yesterday was just over 5p. That gives us a market cap of about 69 million pounds. Pro forma, when the second tranche of the placing is brought in, the pro forma market cap will be just shy of 80 million pounds. We've grown this company to date without using any debt, but as part of this acquisition, we will have about $32 million of total debt outstanding initially. And it's always been important, very important for the board to lead with its own money. We have bought 10% of this company to date. We participated in every single round and in bridge funding to get this acquisition. Unfortunately, we couldn't participate in this latest placing because we have a competent persons report coming out and we have knowledge of what's going into that. So we were prohibited from investing in this most recent round, but we certainly will continue to support the company in the future. There's also $16 million of tax losses, which offset production income, which we'll be getting from this acquisition. So 2021 was a formative year for us. Very proud of the fact that we developed and designed an offset of all of our carbon emissions from operations. Really, to me, was the first of a kind. We do it through the purchase of verified emission reduction credits. It is key to our strategy here. We had a hugely successful first production test in the Paradox. We closed 5 acquisitions, which resulted in a 50% increase in our acreage in the Paradox, as well as growing from 0 production at the beginning of the year to over 650 barrels at the end of December. And that's in addition to averaging about 700 barrels a day from the production test in the Paradox. And the result of that progress was we were the top performing company on AIM last year. We're very proud of that, but we are not resting on our laurels, and hence the acceleration into 2022. We are raising funds which will be deployed directly into accretive investments. This is not going to fund G&A or overheads. These funds will be deployed in a judicious and very accretive way, and we're looking forward to starting that shortly. A quick note on the team, just a few people to point out here. Rick Grant is our chairman. He used to run one of the world's largest natural gas infrastructure companies. He is going to be hugely helpful as we develop our relationships with infrastructure and gathering system owners in Utah. Gregor Maxwell, our head of subsurface, has really been spearheading the Paradox development. He comes out of Apache and Chevron and brings a very critical offshore mentality to this onshore project. And it's why we've been so systematic and careful in developing this. James Lee and Caleb Dasinger are new to us over the last year. They've come out of a private equity-backed firm that was developing a portfolio of non-op in the Williston. They've been hugely helpful and boots on the ground as we build up the non-op strategy. So let me run you quickly through the new acquisition and where we are today in the Williston Basin. This is, again, all non-operated, a very core basin in the US, one of the largest basins in the US. We have currently 15 wells there, just over 650 barrels a day of production in December. We've got 7 wells in the existing portfolio that will be coming online over the next 6 months. You can see to the right here on my screen, the shaded blue boxes are areas in which we already have interests. And all of the blue lines and red boxes are coming with this latest acquisition, the Kaiser acquisition. It really fits hand in glove with our existing portfolio, which is one of the reasons we're very excited to close this. So we will be acquiring interest in 228 wells. They're all operated by Whiting Petroleum. This is a very oily package, low risk, large PDP base, great wellbore diversity, and we're paying just over 2 times EBITDA for this. For those paying attention, you might have seen that Whiting today announced an acquisition in this same exact field of non-op interests. And we think our valuation stacks up very favorably against that mark today. So I'd encourage people to go look at Whiting. So we will be bringing in 163 producing wells and a fair number more to come online over the next year. Average working interest is about 4%. And in terms of margins, these are low operating expense wells, you know, under $15 a BOE, so margins of over 75%. This is our reserve summary done by an independent reserve consultant, and this was done in November pricing. And this combines our non-op portfolio, what we've put together over the last year and now. Just focus on the bottom right corner, the 59 million of total proved reserves, and most of that's PDP. That number will be significantly higher now with good pricing, and it's really the underpinnings of support of value for this company. So it's what we aim to use to then grow the Paradox and accelerate our efforts there. On the Paradox, I know many of you know about this. It's a large acreage position, 37,000 acres. Zephyr and its predecessor have been active there since 2014. We just got approval for a new federal unit across much of this acreage, which helps us hold it in perpetuity as long as we're active there. This was historically a natural fracture play. It wasn't developed using any hydraulic stimulation or horizontal wells. Produced about 10 million barrels to date, but some sporadic results because there was poor seismic across most of it, and really was overlooked during the last decade when other basins such as the Permian and the Williston were moving from what had been, you know, old vertical production and moving to a resource play very successfully. We think this has the opportunity to do the same thing. We have very recent seismic, extensive log, core data, production test data, pressure test data, and it's given us the confidence to move forward and accelerate our efforts here. We also have a unique partnership with the U.S. Department of Energy and the University of Utah's Energy and Geosciences Institute. This gives us not just great access to research and academic tools, but we've also received a grant to drill a research well here of $2.1 million, which we did last year, and that helped us gather the data and the confidence to move forward with this play. I think what everybody's interested in is the recent drill that we've completed off of that research well, a long lateral, 4,000-foot lateral, and a highly successful production test. As I mentioned, it came on at over 1,000 barrels a day peak, and our modeling suggests when the constraints are removed at the surface, this could plateau at above 2,100 barrels a day. So based on this, we are going to go in and do 3 additional wells. One targeting the same reservoir on a different piece of acreage to delineate it. One to the south of us in the historically prolific Cane Creek field, which again hasn't had modern stimulation or horizontal wells combined across it. We think it'll be very applicable there. And we're going to target a well in one of the shallower overlying reservoirs as well. Assuming success here, this would give us at least 150 additional locations across 9 reservoirs to target. Significant scope. It's a lot of scale that we could unlock with success from the next 3 wells. We are considering lots of ways to fund this and to accelerate the development here. We're in a very good position now with the latest funding. We could do this all internally off of our own balance sheet. We're also obviously always look at partners and strategic partnerships if that's better for our shareholders. Drilling highlights and what we've learned. We sidetracked off the existing vertical research well. We were able to go a lateral of about 4,500 feet. Laterals in the future will be longer. We did a small pressure test, an injection test, and then a large stimulation of this. What we've learned through the drilling of these, both the vertical and the horizontal, is that we have hydrocarbons, not just in the Cane Creek target, but in all of the reservoirs above. We've high-graded 8 of those overlying reservoirs. We have excellent formation pressure. This is a highly pressured area, which is strongly positive for reservoir drive, combined with permeability that's consistent with or better than other U.S. prolific plays, like the Williston and the Permian. It's very exciting what we've seen. There are still risks we have to manage. That includes managing the pressures here, understanding the fluid type and how that evolves. But we're extremely happy with what we've learned so far. This first well will be tied in later this year. It can be, we think it'll do around 10 million cubic feet a day and 500 barrels of oil a day of liquids to average about 2,000 overall. In terms of the overall play, we see excellent geologic conditions to continue this style of development, hydraulic stimulation. The liquids that we've seen here are a high API condensate. It blends really well with heavier crude that comes from other parts of the state. We think it'll get a premium to WTI. We know it'll get a premium to WTI at the refinery, but there will be trucking costs to get there. So we're modeling right now slight discount to WTI in our economics. We also have a significant amount of gas volumes. There is infrastructure that runs across this field. There's a new owner of that infrastructure who's a large utility that will be doing some rehab work there shortly. We will tie into that infrastructure long term. In the meantime, there is a phenomenon that's sweeping across the E&P industry at the moment, and that's co-location of crypto mine facilities. It's hard to think, even a few years ago, that you would see crypto mines and stranded gas players working together, but that's what we're seeing. And we have a perfect location for it. There are other operators in our basin doing this already. And we think it's a way to get the well producing earlier than the end of the year and being able to generate both gas volumes sold to the crypto mine and liquid sales as well. I'd like to walk through this idea of crypto mining just a little bit more, because I know it's slightly odd, but or unusual in this industry, but it's really just energy infrastructure. You're taking a locally produced commodity, which is natural gas, you're converting that to power, you're converting the power to a different globally traded commodity. The reason we're seeing so many producers doing this right now is there's a big movement in the Biden administration as well to limit gas flaring and reduce emissions. So the pairing of lots of crypto miners who have come to the US, it's more than a third of all crypto mining right now, paired with these environmental concerns means that there's a real opportunity to co-locate mines and sell gas. We're not stepping into this blindly, though. We put together a really good team to help us source this, including Jacinda, who is a 20-year geologist in the Paradox Basin and has spent 4 years setting up mines. We have Zach Fallon, who was a leading attorney at the SEC, who's helping us on the regulatory front now that he's in private practice. And Will Mapp, who's a cryptocurrency developer, noted author on tech issues, and has been really helpful in setting the lay of the land for us. So lastly, just to touch on our overall philosophies, we are carbon neutral. It's incredibly important to us. There's a cost from being carbon neutral. We're averaging under $1 a barrel for buying these credits right now, but we're also seeing some economic benefits on the side of being able to sell at a premium price those volumes that are considered carbon neutral. Beyond that, it's just the right thing to do. We're obviously global, oil and gas are in global common usage. We think we can have an impact by making that production of it more friendly from the macro standpoint. micro standpoint, local considerations, we're also very focused on maximum resource recovery with minimum of surface disruption. And by developing this as a hydraulically stimulated resource play, it'll allow for multiple wells on a single pad, minimizes surface disruption. We are miles from any local town or community, so there's zero traffic noise, air emission, or water table impacts. This is a very good place to both develop an oil and gas play as well as to co-locate crypto mines. So that's a lot of information. Where does it all sum up? We have a portfolio with the closing of this deal that has a huge amount of organic growth potential. To date, we've delivered creative solutions to de-risk that Paradox portfolio and to grow the value, whether it's the grant funding or whether it's how we've built out the non-op volumes, which then kind of accelerate more cash flow back into the Paradox play. There's growth potential on both sides, but the Paradox alone, and I'll reiterate this, we see 1 billion barrels of oil equivalent in place, even with extremely conservative recovery factors of between 5 and 15%. In a success case here, we see at least 150 wells to drill, and this 3-well program at the end of this year could lead to a significantly larger program next year. All of the cash flow numbers we talk about so far are really just from the non-op, but this will have the ability to augment that significantly. So next steps for us. There's a fair amount of upcoming news flow. We're going to close the Kaiser acquisition on or before February 18th. We have an independent competent persons report, which includes the overlying reservoirs that we expect to receive by the end of the month. That's with the reserve auditor right now. We are working on rolling out the partnership and development for the co-location of the crypto mining, which will lead to early revenues from the State 16-2. We'll have many more ducts coming online in the Williston over the next year. And we're moving full speed ahead on our preparations. Our goal is to take the cash flow that we're getting from the Williston and grow more fully from the Paradox drilling program to grow the underlying assets as reserves or as resource are moved into reserves. And certainly we've been able to do that with the first well. We'll grow through resource additions, and we're always on the lookout for accretive acquisitions, but they must be a right fit. Above all, Donald, as we've talked about, it's a constant attention to the core values, responsible stewards of our investors' capital and responsible stewards of the environment. And I'll leave it at that. I'm sure there will be questions.
Colin, that was comprehensive. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Let me kick it off by asking you about hedging. You intend to hedge, but you haven't yet. So what are the benefits and costs of hedging the portfolio? That one's for me.
Well, look, I think it's a great time to be hedging. You're correct. We have not hedged any of the volumes to date. So all of our Williston volumes are unhedged at the moment. But now that we're layering on debt and we'll have a significant level of production, it is the appropriate time to hedge a portion of our production, really to lock in and secure funding to be paying down debt, and especially to lock in the funding for the Paradox. So, people should expect that we will be hedging out a fair portion of the volumes. And obviously, in this type of environment, I don't mind having some upside, but we think we can lock in a lot more cash flow than we expected when we negotiated this transaction a few months ago.
So hedging is about hanging on to your money. It's hanging on to the wins that you've gained.
It's ensuring funding. Yes, it's ensuring funding for our plans and to make sure our balance sheet is bulletproof.
Okay. Risks which remain to be managed. You were mentioning it very briefly. I thought that was an interesting thing just to explore for a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we take a very measured approach to risk. We used government funding to drill the first research well here. We spent months analyzing the cores and the logs. We've paired it with our seismic, which matches very perfectly, ties in perfectly with what we found underground. We took very small steps and did a lot of analysis before we began spending the larger sums of capital here. So we'll continue to do that. I think, we still need to understand the evolution of the fluid mix. This well had substantially more gas than we thought. It had the oil we knew would be there, but more gas as well. Other wells in this region haven't been so gassy. So there are still things that we need to understand around water production, fluid mix, Pressure can always be tricky to deal with when you're drilling in a high pressured environment. We've demonstrated that we can do it. We've done it very successfully now twice, but it's something to manage. And on the flip side, it's a huge opportunity because it provides great reservoir drive.
Okay, and now we have several questions from the London Southeast website from all the people who've joined us tonight just to hear you speak. Kenny McKeever, let's start with Kenny. He gives us a bit of an example. The annual estimated run rate from Williston is 1,759 barrels of oil per day. The State 16 2LN well, that's 2,100, gives you a total of blah, blah, blah. At $70 per barrel, that would produce gross revenues of around 98 million US, he says. So here's the questions. We finally get here. What's your best estimate of net cash flow to the company arising from gross revenues after deduction of overheads, loan interest, and tax?
Okay, so I think it's important for us not to get ahead of ourselves. I'm not trying to dodge the question, but we have the CPR coming out here shortly, and we purposefully haven't released cash flow estimates from the Paradox. We will once we have the CPR in hand and we can forecast on something that has the third-party verification. I think Kenny's calculations are good from the Williston side. Certainly, you can look at what we've released in the CPR there, because the Williston assets have been published and they're on our website. You see 75% margins plus. So OpEx at $13, oil that's around the $90 range right now. So there's a lot of margin that you get from the Williston wells. Similarly, on the Paradox side, we've said this before, the OpEx there is in the mid-teens, and we fully expect those to be highly profitable wells with rapid paybacks. So until we release cash flow estimates, and we'll do that, I don't want to get more detailed than that, but I think people can work up their own calculations based on the production numbers we've given and the OpEx that we've put out there.
Okay, Kenny goes on to ask, or to say, 3 more wells in the Paradox in 2022. How much do you estimate those will cost to bring those online? And would you expect all 3 to be producing by Q1 2023?
Yeah, so we certainly would want to tie all 3 in and be producing at that point. So first and foremost, yes, these are not delineation wells that won't have cash flow associated with them. They very much are designed to be producers that will be tied in and be able to kick off a fair amount of cash flow to fund the next year's program. In terms of costs, these wells right now, we think they'll cost about $8 million per well, but we're 75% working interest in 2 of them. And in the one to the south, we will probably partner with a neighboring owner and split that well 50-50. So, costs all into the company are probably closer to $16 million or so.
Okay, so you have already partnered with on some of those wells?
So we already have a 25% non-op owner in the Paradox. We've always had that, and we expect them to participate going forward. If they don't, certainly we would step up and do the remainder. To the south, we're looking at forming a partnership with a company that's there drilling across both sides, so longer lateral instead of drilling on just one section, to be able to drill across 2, and it'll be a bigger well, but also we're excited about the potential there.
Would there be sufficient cash in the company to drill and bring those 3 wells into production?
Yep,
or would you have to raise additional funds? This is a big question.
Yep. So this is, and this is obviously why we've taken the pain up front here to bring this cash flow in, because these Williston assets now will kick off over $25 million of EBITDA a year. And that's when we modeled it at $70 oil for this year and mid-60s for next year. There's a sufficient amount of cash flow to do what we want to do here in the Paradox over this coming year.
Okay, talking of the pain, David Johnson and Gordon Tuff were both frustrated with the latest share placing because the latest raise has diluted their shareholding, pushing them both into a loss. And let me hit you with their quotes. Interested to learn how diluting my shareholding by nearly 20%, while at the same time reducing its value by 1/3, was part of a carefully crafted strategy. That's David. Gordon says, do you think you'll be pulling this trick again, stopping existing holders from selling out and buying back in at 5p? I've been forced to hold the dip. Discuss.
Okay. Well, certainly one of the reasons I'm on here tonight, just after the placing, is to make sure I reiterate to everybody why we've gone down this path. I'm the single largest shareholder in the company at this point, and this is a decision that I and the board did not take lightly. It's a step backward today in order to take 2 or 3 steps forward in the near future. And it's similar to what we did last year when we initially funded the first Bakken wells, the first Williston wells, and the Paradox drilling program. It's not something that we do lightly, and I understand the dilution and the pain we've taken up front. But on the flip side, for 12 million pounds in equity, so call it $16 million, that's going to generate, if we hedge this, over $40 million of future cash flows after the debt is repaid. Okay, so it's hugely accretive. In one swoop, we are doubling cash flow per share on a diluted basis, and we're tripling current production. And this is all in a low risk, high margin field, a field where today the operator has just bought another 4,500 barrels and other upside for $273 million. We think our valuation is extremely attractive as compared to that. And it gives us an underpinning for this company, proved assets that paradoxically, yes, the paradox is not reflected accurately in our value today. The proved assets should be. And as we can go through this process of releasing the CPR and developing the program there, I do believe we will have a more accurate reflection of that.
So for long-term holders, this is good news.
For long-term holders, and again, of which I'm one of them, this was the right step forward for the company. It's difficult to do, and at the same time, it gives us a huge amount more running room than we had a month ago.
Fantastic. Colin, Harrington, thank you so much. That was absolutely illuminating. Great slide pack. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Donald. Much appreciated, and thanks everybody for watching.
Okay, next up, we have Poolbeg Pharma. Our next AIM-listed business has a market cap of around £39 million. It was spun out from Open Orphan last year and raised £25 million in the process. Poolbeg Pharma develops early-stage drugs to tackle infectious disease. Poolbeg's strategy is to develop multiple products quickly and cost-effectively. Whilst its initial assets were inherited from Open Orphan, it has been busy buying licenses for a development portfolio, hopefully full of potential. And joining us tonight to explain more about not just the strategy, but about the delivery of the strategy is Jeremy Skillington, CEO.
Donald, good evening.
Good evening to you, Jeremy. How are you tonight?
I'm doing very well. And yourself? It's a bit dark and rainy here in Dublin, but we carry on. I'm
so disappointed. I thought Dublin was just full of sunshine, like its people.
Never.
All right, Jeremy. I shall leave you to tell us more.
Super. Listen, thanks very much. And again, I appreciate the attendees tonight as being here to allow me to give an update, a significant update, I think, on Poolbeg Pharma, the progress that we've made. I do remind people that, obviously the legal disclaimers is the first reminder, but secondly, we're a relatively new company spinning out of Open Orphan back in July of this year. We went public and we raised 25 million on the London Stock Exchange, significant shareholders in Schroders Investor Management and our chairman, Colin as well. And again, as a background or strategy, we're targeting infectious diseases exclusively. Again, it's a booming market right now for the reasons we're all aware. With COVID, pharma companies are looking to fill their pipelines with new programs and products. And that's where Poolbeg is an opportune time to be stepping in to provide them with that. And I'll go through the strategy later on. Our plan, we're a little bit different. We're capital light and rapid development. We plan to get early human clinical data very quickly and at a cost-effective manner. And that's what pharma craves. I think there's two things they crave: is human data and intellectual property, and we're building out on both. And again, early monetization is the strategy. We don't take these drugs all the way to commercialization. We let pharma companies do that, to take on the risk, to take on the cost. And as I say, we sit back and let them develop while we recoup investment in the form of milestones and royalties. So again, we've been building out our assets. As Donald said, we started with assets we inherited from Open Orphan and colleagues at hVivo, who Open Orphan had acquired. And again, we've been in licensing actively since, and I'll talk through our pipeline, our growing, burgeoning pipeline shortly. And again, it shows great promise in the future. I will say the execution, as Donald said, is critical on this, and it comes from very, very experienced management team who have, as a team, have combined to contribute over $1 billion in shareholder value from the various companies we've worked with over the last decade or so. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Progress since IPO, as I mentioned, is quite significant. Our lead program, POLB 001, is a small molecule immunomodulator for severe influenza, progressing well. We've moved it forward. We're in manufacturing right now. We'll have human clinical trials starting in the summer, and everything is on track to hit the milestone that we set at IPO. So that's going well. We did add a few new assets I'll speak to later on. POLB 002. This is an intranasal therapy for a broad range of viral infectious diseases. Again, very excited about this program. And again, we're all, as I say, front and center in viral infectious disease right now. So this is a very interesting and exciting asset. POLB 003. We in-licensed, it's a vaccine against a tropical, subtropical disease called melioidosis. There is nothing out there for that. So this is a real kind of a jewel in the crown that we could bring this forward, get early clinical data and partner with pharma. And we've started those early discussions with pharma. We all have terrific networks. And also we have an oral vaccine delivery platform we licensed recently to move forward, again, for good reasons. Everyone would like to avoid injections. So if there's a way of getting an oral vaccine, that's terrific. And this is a broad platform, multiple diseases. We also have an AI program that we're making good progress on from a contractual standpoint. And hopefully we'll be announcing something on that soon. Again, I'm very excited about that. As a former scientist, I'm very excited about this approach. And again, we're looking to in-license more assets. As Donald said, we're trying to build a pipeline that essentially has multiple shots on goal. So we'll be kind of moving these forward rapidly, generating data, partnering with pharma. And again, the multiple shots is essentially de-risking the program. So if, looking for the successes, obviously we'll be clever with our in-licensing. So the bottom here is the summary. We're creating value by generating early human data, which again, as I said, that's what pharma looks for. And then we proceed to out-license these programs to pharma and recoup our investment through milestones and royalties as they develop them further. And as you'll see later on, pharma is keen to bring programs forward. This is a very obvious slide. Infectious disease is front and center for everybody right now across vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics. And Poolbeg is playing in all of these three areas. The market for infectious diseases is expected to exceed $250 billion by 2025 across these three areas. And as I say, there's a lot of talk, a lot of discussion about what's next. We were ill prepared for the COVID-19 pandemic, but there's a lot of discussion, there's a lot of funding to be better prepared for future pandemics. And they will happen. Now we have a good understanding of how they happen. I think there's other obvious challenges as well. As I say, the UN see it as a clear and present danger, not just viral infections, but others. As I say, we're planning to be ready and prepared for that as well. The challenges of actually a dual infection. There's discussions around getting flu and COVID at the same time. And obviously a big challenge for your immune system there. So there's grave concerns. And I think in the US, but globally, there is a pivot to let's fund interesting and exciting technologies to be better prepared in the future. And the White House talking about $65 billion to move programs forward. So obviously we'll be reaching out. We did raise $25 million, but there's a great appetite for gaining additional funding and financing in a non-dilutive fashion. There's a lot of grants and government funding out there we'll be pursuing. So this slide summarizes the company. As I say, we're capital light with early monetization, and that comes in the form of deals. And I've been doing deals for the last 20 years. So knowing my connections and contacts in pharma, that when we have very attractive human data, then we'll have significant and serious discussions about partnering. So again, it's multiple assets, early human data, low development costs in the 4 to 5 million range to get that human data, and then getting these results really quickly. And I say pharma like to get these assets early so then they can shape the development programs as they move forward. They're not relying on our phase 2 or phase 3 data. They do prefer to move these forward themselves. And I think a case in point is the last company I worked with, Inflazome, where we were founded in 2016. We raised 55 million in venture financing capital, so privately backed VCs, and we were acquired by Roche Pharmaceuticals in 2020. 55 million investment. We got an initial upfront of 380 million with downstream milestones to come as development progresses. So that's the key aspect here. Roche have taken this on board. They're funding developments. They're putting their stamp on it from a development standpoint and moving that forward in multiple diseases. And the key thing here from an Inflazome standpoint is that we completed phase 1 and we had data in one patient, positive data, I should say, which obviously is very important here. So that was enough for Roche to acquire the company to move the programs forward. And this is a small molecule deal for inflammatory diseases. And again, it parallels with our lead program here with severe influenza that I'll discuss. So again, the goal is to move forward 5 or 6 different assets and become cash generative really quickly. And that's through partnering, through deals with pharma. And as you see later on, and I'll reiterate, pharma are very keen and eager to bring in external technology, external innovation to complement their own internal activities and their research and development activities. So low cost, early data, and we partner with pharma. That's the Poolbeg strategy. I'm very proud of this slide because it shows the progress that we've made in our short 6 months since IPO. What you see in blue here is what we brought in, what we inherited at the outset, and what we have in green is what we've in-licensed since then. So POLB 001, our small molecule for severe influenza, as I mentioned, that's ready to go into the clinic this year to test in a challenge study and get human data for to demonstrate the anti-inflammatory effect of this program. POLB 002, I mentioned a recent deal we did. That's late preclinical, and we're building our team, our activities around that to move that forward rapidly. This is primed to get into early human challenge studies in the viral setting. And I should mention our colleagues at Open Orphan and hVIVO run these studies regularly and are very successful at that for those who share investors with Open Orphan and Poolbeg. 003, as I mentioned, melioidosis vaccine, very exciting, very, no competition out there right now, but a very serious disease that needs help. So again, we've been very selective in the programs that we've brought in. And again, we see great potential to move these forward. I will highlight what we have here as a phase 2, let's say, is this monetization zone. This is where we see getting deals done with pharma and generating revenue from the deals, whether it's upfront and milestones combined. So this is how we'll be cash generative very quickly. We're not going to take on the risk and cost of moving these programs forward all the way to commercializations ourselves. We're going to remain, as I say, capital light. We're going to remain very lean and move these programs forward rapidly. So again, very excited about the slide and the progress myself and the team have made. I have a terrific team behind me here. Other programs to mention, the AI, I won't touch upon that today just for time reasons, but as I say, it's a very exciting program to identify new targets and new pathways that are active in infectious diseases that then we can drug and inhibit disease progressions. And a vaccine discovery platform where we can identify what part of a virus or that the immune system recognizes, and then we can generate vaccines from that. So very clever technology, very interesting science. And as I said, we're not stopping there. We're looking for other assets to bring in, and we're in multiple parallel discussions, doing diligence on a number of assets. So building the pipeline, again, with the goal to move forward rapidly from there. So I will spend a little bit of time just on each of these programs, just to give a little bit more color. And you'll see common threads coming through. I think for this first one is, the key point is from our IPO, we had a number of statements of here's what we're going to do. And I think importantly, we've been successful in achieving those to date. So this is a small molecule P38 inhibitor repositioned. It was in the clinic previously with a goal to treat rheumatoid arthritis. It wasn't ultimately successful. It was the wrong indication for that. But the team at hVIVO identified severe influenza as being an important target, important disease that this program could hit and target and benefit patients from. They filed patents that go out to 2038. So again, very important that we're protected in that space. This is a molecule we in-licensed. We've got worldwide use for all human uses. We do estimate peak sales in the 275 million range for 1 year. So as you see, pharma do tend to pay a lot of money because they see this as a long-term therapy that they can recoup their investment in a deal over many years. And we're looking beyond severe influenza. There's potential to expand beyond severe influenza. And obviously, I won't talk about that for patent reasons, but we've got good insights into what other diseases to pursue. So one drug treating multiple diseases, again, something that pharma likes. Progress-wise, we have manufacturing and formulation ongoing. Clinical trial is all set up, ready to go, beginning of June of this year. So again, we're hitting our timelines as we stated. So making good progress in that space. A reminder about influenza, maybe people have forgotten with all of what's gone on, but in normal years, 1 in 8 people globally are infected by influenza, 5 to 10 million are hospitalized, and there's 500,000 deaths. And I think there's been a demand on people now that pharma should improve these numbers, that they've done well with COVID-19 vaccines. So let's do the same for influenza. So we're moving to that space, treating the sickest patients and bringing them back from the edge, essentially. Because when their immune system, when the virus triggers the immune system, it's the immune system causes damage. So we're going to block that from happening. Our next program, you can see, is quite complementary. It's also in the respiratory virus space, very different disease, though this is an RNA-based immunotherapy. So again, hedging ourselves here with not putting all our eggs in the small molecule basket. So a different approach, very novel approach. We recently, just last month, did an exclusive license to this dual action immunotherapy. I think what's important here from a dual action standpoint is that it's an intranasal injection. It triggers your immune cells in your nose to be ready for a viral challenge, but it also blocks viral replication. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch, essentially. So a very unique approach to this therapy. So again, late preclinical, a lot of data, a lot of positive data. So building the team together to get that moving forward from a manufacturing standpoint and getting our clinical strategy in place. So again, very exciting. So this is a watch this space, very interesting approach. Again, overall respiratory viral infections are numerous. 5 to 20% of the population get some kind of viral infection every year. 3 million deaths, and it's a top 5 cause of global deaths. So again, across all different respiratory viruses. So we've got a therapy for that, both a prophylactic before you get the disease and a therapeutic when you do have it. So again, very exciting approach. POLB 003 is a vaccine against melioidosis. Again, I mentioned this is it's a late preclinical, terrific amount of work that the team at University College Dublin near us here have done over the last number of years. Wellcome Trust funded, so they've actually brought this forward a lot themselves. They're in discussions around good GMP manufacturing, critical to get clinical trials going. So we're partnering with them to move that forward at pace as well. And this is a very unheard of disease. It has significant issues in tropical, subtropical countries. I think the challenging point here is there's 165,000 cases annually and 54% fatality. So there's nothing out there for this particular disease. And so we plan to be the first on the market for something like this. So looking forward to bringing this forward, as I say, of significant unmet need. We do, it should be worth pointing out, have an agreement with UCD about other programs they have internally that are earlier. But we can have access to those if following diligence, they excite us. I will talk about a recent deal again. Last month, you can see we've been very active ourselves on the deal front. An oral vaccine delivery platform. I mentioned earlier, we've, many people are, getting the injections in the arms, which is good. That itself creates challenges when it comes to generating the correct immunity. So that gives us systemic immunity, but a lot of times pathogens enter through, the nose or the gut, and you want to generate mucosal immunity. And this is where oral vaccines come into play. So they're triggering mucosal immunity in your gut. So if you get an infection in your gut and elsewhere, they're protected. So we've got an interesting technology here. If you ingest any kind of vaccine component, your stomach acids and enzymes will degrade it. Well, this is a really interesting technology that is able to bypass the stomach, get it into the gut, and then disperse and activate that mucosal immunity. So this, again, is a platform across many different diseases. So we're working with colleagues in NanoBio to bring this program forward ourselves, and can be complementary with our own vaccine delivery platform. So some interesting and exciting work to do here. And I say the benefits, as I mentioned, driving mucosal immunity rather than systemic, again, has benefits. Easier distribution. It doesn't have to have a cold chain. I think part of the issues with COVID-19 vaccines, for example, is getting into tropical and subtropical countries with a cold chain. But this is just a pill, so it travels a lot easier. And of course, overcoming needle phobia. So again, a lot of exciting programs in our pipeline, which we're building upon. And the point I want to move back to that I mentioned earlier on is pharma. And pharma and the desire to fill their pipeline both internally through the activity of their scientists in the labs, but also externally. They look for innovation externally to the company and try and complement their own internal disease strategies. And this slide, I think, is quite interesting. If you look from the left to the right, the dark blue at the bottom of the slides, for example, is where these are internally developed and sourced and progressed programs. And everything above that dark blue is what they've brought in externally, whether it's acquired or co-developed or joint ventures or in license. So you can see over time that pharma are looking more and more externally to bring in programs. And that's where companies like Poolbeg can come in and provide them with a conveyor belt of assets that then pharma brings in and develops further. So again, very excited about the shift. As I say, we're fortunate in the times that we live in that this is a pivot that pharma are doing. They're looking externally for innovation, but also, as I say, to be in infectious diseases, the timing couldn't be better for a company like Poolbeg to be advancing programs. And I want to highlight at the bottom here the types and size of deals that pharmas do. So you can see on the left, Reviral, this is a 120 million deal for RSV, a space that we play in. Merck acquiring Oncommune for a COVID-19 program for 425 million upfront. And then Pfizer doing a deal around Lyme disease for 130 million upfront, and just announced last week that they're progressing into phase 3. So this is something they brought in that Valneva developed early, and Pfizer bring this forward. And I'm sure as they progress, Valneva generates that 188 million downstream milestones as progression continues. I do want to highlight a comparator company, we like to say, Evotec, or a German company, who, similar to Poolbeg, started in the CRO world. They did lots of deals with pharmas developing programs, and decided to get clever in that. Let's start the programs ourselves, and then partner with pharma. And this is what they've been doing for the last several years. And you can see on the right the trajectory of their stock price as they progressed over the last 5 years. So significant increase as they progressed programs and partnered with pharma. And you can see one example of a deal on the bottom, doing a deal with Takeda, where they get significant upfronts and 160 million milestones downstream. So it's a collaboration. And typically in these collaborations, pharma will pay for the funding and develop and bring it forward. And then upon success, will pay back Evotec. So this is how they're going to make their money long-term. So if you see a company like Poolbeg, and as I say, relatively new to the space, IPOing in July last year, we can anticipate a similar trajectory over the coming months and years as we build the company and progress our programs and partner with pharma. So we like to compare ourselves to Evotec as a goal. That's something we can strive to achieve over the coming years as we progress our programs internally and partner. So my last slide here, a summary slide, just to remind the attendees tonight, infectious diseases is expected to grow rapidly in revenues from vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics over the next few years to 250 billion. And Poolbeg plans to have a part to play in that as we progress our programs. We do remind people capitalize multiple shots on goals clinical strategy. We're very cautious and careful with our spend. We're obviously want to stretch it as far as we can. So we negotiate pretty hard and heavy with our contract research groups. Again, expanding our pipeline, infectious diseases, our focus. We've looked at well over 50 to 60 programs about potentially in-licensing, and we'll only pick what we see as strategically advantageous to Poolbeg, but has exciting science behind it, and of course a market and a partner ability. So that's where we're striving for. And again, I remind people of the team and the successes we've had in the past with our various companies in the last 5 to 6 years, and we know how to execute. So again, as I wrap up, our plan is to be a leading infectious disease company. We'll do this by advancing our programs and partnering with pharma. And as I say, have a multiple shots on goal approach and be a conveyor belt for partnering. So again, appreciate your time this evening, and happy to take questions, Donald, what you may have.
Okay, gentlemen, that was fascinating. Thank you very much indeed. And I like the new slide pack. It's really terrific. Thank you.
Thank you too. Yeah, we've made some good progress. It's nice to share this progress.
I agreed. So POLB 123, oral vaccine delivery platform, AI-powered drug discovery program, and vaccine discovery platform. My goodness. Where do you put your CapEx first? You've got your 25 million. Do you have a plan as to how you're going to divide that and allocate your capital?
I think what's fortunate, we've been clever with the kind of, let's say, staggering. POLB 001 is the lead program. As I say, we're investing right now in manufacturing, which is critical, getting clinical trials in place. And what we expect is by the end of the year, Q4, we'll have that key clinical trial data, how this compound behaves in humans in an inflammatory, in a challenge model. That will tell us a lot about the direction to take. And that's a data set we can go to pharma with. And I think that's the key thing. We go to pharma saying, we've got a drug, we've got a molecule, we're striving for severe influenza. There's potential for other diseases that we're pursuing as well. but it's safe and effective.
So POLB 001 might be your best chance of getting some early revenues, do you think?
Yes, I think there's, the discussions with pharma will happen by the end of the year, and then we'll get a read or an appetite into, taking this forward. I mentioned one of the strengths will be the human data that we generate in the challenge study, and we've got a very exciting clinical trial designed for that. And then the intellectual property, the IP that's filed behind that, protecting the asset in severe influenza. I think that'll be, as a very, very beneficial for pharma when they see that. So yeah, it could be, but pharma are, as I said, looking for infectious disease assets, and we'll have a very attractive data set for them by the end of the year.
Could you shine a light on your processes? Are you hiring a small core team aligned to each of the different licenses and assets that you have?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, part of the capital light approach is leveraging external expertise. So we've got a network of outsourcing. We've got a network of consultants who, and the beauty of this is that you can bring them in and drop them out as you need them. So you don't need to have that, fully burdened, FTE cost of somebody in your office who may not have the expertise you need. And I'll give an example for, let's say, manufacturing. We have a CMC expert who kind of comes in, guides the process, and then drops back out as we don't need them. And I think it's a clever approach. It's actually a well-worn approach in the industry, because you don't need a manufacturing expert for 12 months.
Consultants are one thing, but you do need a core team who know what's going on and a continuity. So
absolutely.
Talk us through what happens inside Poolbeg rather than outside Poolbeg.
I like to describe us as we're professional managers. We're managing this external team of experts. Now, we all have knowledge ourselves internally. We've got a team of project managers to move this forward who are experienced in the space. But as I say, we have chief medical officer on contract again, who's monitoring and analyzing the clinical development of the lead programs. But as I said, we have an excellent team internally that we can leverage in to move the programs forward. And I think the proof of the pudding is, Donald, in that we're hitting our timelines that we stated at IPO last year. So we've been quite effective in driving the programs forward.
Great. Now, I do apologize to the person whose name I can't find, but there are so many questions for you tonight, Jeremy.
Good.
20 questions. So I'm plowing through all those 20 questions and I've lost the person's name, so I apologize to them. How much per asset do we have to spend?
Yeah, we've kind of stated from the outset, we're planning 4 or 5 million per. And to do that, I mean, the manufacturing cost, formulation costs, clinical trial costs. Now, the clinical trial are these early human studies. They're actually quite manageable from a clinical standpoint. So, obviously, for confidentiality purposes, I don't talk about specifics that are in contracts, but we're kind of tough in negotiation to get costs down. So I think 4 to 5 million will have a really attractive, nice data set. We do anticipate some may go earlier than that, but we do want to put a cap of 4 to 5 million on that we don't want to go over, because we generate an attractive data set for that amount of money. And then we don't want to take the risk. We want pharma to take the risk from there and obviously fund development beyond that timeline that, as I say, the early human data we've mentioned.
Okay. Now, apart from Evotech, the capital light model is quite untried, if not untested. Don't get cross with me. But and 12 to 18 months sounds quite ambitious in terms of a timeline.
Yep.
How do you react to that?
I mean, there are certain things in drug development that there are, I wouldn't call them bottlenecks, there's kind of essential steps. But like manufacturing, for example, may take up to 6 months, but that we plan ahead. We plan ahead to kind of have everything lined. You should see our Gantt charts, Donald. They're kind of quite complex, but everything is kind of in line and moving things forward. But as I say, we're kind of, for every program, for every external bid, let's say, like we got to get 3 bids in and then we kind of negotiate those. So we're very careful with that, but it's doable. I mean, as you said, like from 12 months from the IPO, we'll actually be in humans with our lead program. So it's doable.
So there's lots of parallel process taking place.
Oh, without question. We're all exhausted, but
You're all exhausted. Good. Carl will be pleased.
Yeah, absolutely. But
I think he likes exhausted staff.
It's fun. It's fun and challenging. It's one of those things. You're satisfied with your day's work.
Right. It was Simon Peace. I can name check Simon. Thank you, Simon, for your question.
Very good.
Colin Woolley. Let me take the second part of your question. Would management consider a more regular update so that the market might remain excited about the stock, given that we're operating in such a buzz sector? He thinks you're not putting out enough RNSs, but I feel like telling Colin that you've just taken on 3 licenses.
Exactly, exactly. And there's more coming.
I even saw them on the slide.
Yep.
Colin wants more, I think.
Absolutely, without a question. There's no bottom limit. I mean, as I say, we'll kind of announce we have been very active. There's much more going on in the background. So yes, I mean, we'll give our updates as we have them. We don't want to be that one of those companies that gives out just kind of spurious kind of RNSs. Like, let's keep them the content good. But in the next few months, absolutely, there's a lot of news flow to come in the next few months. And again, we feel now after 6 months, we've kind of hit stride. We've got some good deals in, and we're going to kind of hit stride further. And now it's taking the baton and running with it.
Right. So the flu vaccine might be the number one. POLB 001 might be the first.
001, the lead program. Yeah, I mean, as I said, we'll have human data on that soon.
Do you have another favorite child? Is there another one that really stands out for you? Because they all seem very interesting to me.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't hear Donald.
Do you have another favorite child? Which of them do you think might be good?
You should know, Donald. They're all my favorite children. I think everyone has a slightly different approach, and I think that again from a Poolbeg standpoint and a de-risking standpoint, I think we're taking the right approach here to hedge our bets, let's say. But each one of them alone, could be quite important and lucrative, from a deal standpoint. But as I say, we'll take these forward. I didn't get an answer on that, unfortunately. I did try, though. The oral vaccine delivery platform, that to me sounds really interesting. Yeah. What is its potential? Tell us a little bit about its potential. I mean, what we're looking at right now is a number of programs. I mean, you think about kind of, enteric bugs, let's say, activating mucosal immunity is a critical thing. Anything like E. coli, there's a lot of these diseases that happen that, you could have a vaccine for, but taking it as a pill format. I mean, can you imagine? It's just, distributes all over the world as a pill rather than injectable. You don't need a cold chain. So it's a case of getting your antigen in there to trigger your immune system, an adjuvant, which is, which actually stimulates the immune response, and then protecting it from the stomach. It's a very interesting technology. And if it works, it can go anywhere. It's just, it's one of these kind of gold mines, but it's, we're pushing it forward with a colleague at Anabio who've done this. They've demonstrated it in other programs, other diseases, that they can protect a drug from the stomach and get it through to the other side. So we're thinking, if we can do that with vaccines, then we're onto something.
Jeremy, sounds fascinating. Now, don't be offended, but 2 different people have asked. Spark, JC, and one other have said, why don't you buy some shares? Now, I have to ask CEOs this regularly, and they go.
It's a great question. We've been. Part of it, right? Part of the challenge has been that I've been an insider all the way along.
That's one answer. That's always one answer, indeed.
But we have to figure out how to do that. I completely agree. I mean, it doesn't look good. I completely agree. But you have to figure out, because I'll always be an insider, so there has to be some solution. So I'll be talking to the lawyers to see what they and our nomads. What's the best way to approach this? But we will have to come to a solution. I completely agree.
Very quick answer. NASDAQ. Any still?
It's on the cards. It's on the cards. As I say, right now we're focused on building a pipeline, and so when you have an attractive pipeline, you go to NASDAQ with that discussion. So it's on the cards without question. There's Colin has talked about that numerous times, and it's definitely let's build a pipeline, make it attractive, and then take it stateside to grow and expand.
Yes, it's all about delivery at the end of the day.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Fantastic. Jeremy, you're a complete star. We're out of time. I'm so sorry to all those people. Truly, I am. I mean, fantastic. Thank you so much for all the questions. Onto our third company tonight. World Copper Limited is a Canadian resource company headquartered in Vancouver. It's focused on the exploration and development of its copper porphyry projects. And those are Escalones and Cristal in Chile and Zonia in Arizona. Arizona is a new acquisition. WCU is listed on the TSX and OTC exchanges and has a market cap of around 42 million pounds, with apologies. 2 of these projects already have estimated resources with significant soluble copper mineralization, with at least 2 other copper porphyry targets with exciting potential to expand the resource base. Zonia was acquired as part of a merger transaction with Cardero Resource Corp, and the deal is just completed. We're delighted to welcome Nolan, Peterson, CEO, to tell us more. He's the first of our TSX companies. Welcome, Nolan.
Hello, Donald. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone, for joining as well.
Now, I presume it's morning. It's morning time for you, is it, Nolan?
Yeah, that's right. It's morning here, but thanks everyone for taking time out of their evenings to listen, especially to stay for my presentation too.
No, I'm rather. I always think the ones at the end. Everyone turns up for the first ones, but I always think the last two are the real. They're the companies for tomorrow.
Well, I would agree when you hear after you hear our presentation. I hope everyone does.
Okay, I'm holding on tight.
Okay.
Over to you, Nolan.
Thank you, Donald. Thank you, everyone, again. So as Donald mentioned, World Copper is a Canadian-based junior mining company focused in Chile and Arizona right now. I'm going to move pretty quickly through our deck because we do have a lot to talk about, but a limited amount of time. So I'll just try to focus on the highlights. I'll introduce you to myself as the CEO, so I won't talk too much about the rest of the management team. My background is in engineering. I've been a metallurgist for my entire career. I spent the first 5 years of my career in project development for a company called S&C Lavalin. I then went to work for a producing gold company and built a couple projects, including one in Kamloops in BC called the New Afton Copper Gold Project. And then along the way, I picked up a CFA charter and an MBA. So I bring a strong financial background to the company as well. So maybe a little bit different than a typical junior mining company based out of Canada, where you have a geologist or promoter in charge. I'm a exploration and development person who has built assets and worked for companies that have put them into production and has operated them, most importantly. So that should give you a little bit of a different flavor to what we bring at World Copper. So why are we involved in copper? Well, we do have a number of slides on our deck, but I'll just focus on this. A lot of people may be aware of this, but probably most people are not. There's a very large supply crunch coming for the copper space in the near future, especially by the end of the decade. You have analysts, I'm on slide 12. You can see analysts such as Goldman Sachs have called copper the new oil. Why is copper the new oil? Because of its role in electricity and, most importantly, power generation, which is, of course, oil's primary use. So by the end of the decade, Goldman Sachs and others are projecting a deficit of about 12.5 billion pounds of copper. Now, what's driving that is not just supply and not just demand, but both of these running in conjunction. So you have a supply issue because it's becoming harder and harder to find attractive, high quality copper deposits. They're becoming lower and lower grade, which increases the operating costs. They're becoming harder to find, harder to permit, much more expensive to put into production. You find here that, here's a stat that I like to show. In the last decade, $50 billion US was spent on exploration and development. Only 225 billion pounds of copper was discovered in that period. Now that may seem like a lot, but more copper was found in 1 year, 1991 alone, than the last 10 years, sorry. And in the last 5 years, only one major copper discovery has been found and only 4 in the last 10. On the other side of the coin is the demand side. Everybody knows that copper is very useful for electricity, but they also just think that since it's an industrial metal like iron or aluminum, it will always be there for us, but that's simply not the case. And also we have copper being used more and more in things like electric vehicles, in power transmission, in also for power generation for solar and wind power. So this demand curve here, I think, is pretty steady and does not include a large spike. And we see what happens when technologies start to just catch fire around the world, smartphones, HD televisions, the internet, social media. These things skyrocket in popularity and demand once something just switches. And that here is not even accounted for. And you can see with the potential mines coming online and just a steady increase in demand, there's going to be an expected deficit starting in the next 2 or 3 years. Right now, we just match demand with supply globally, but this is going to widen as we progress. And people are forecasting up to $7 per pound of copper. Right now, we're trading at about $4.40, which is just 10% off all-time highs. And we've been pretty stable there for the last few months or so. So let's talk about our assets. Let's jump to Chile, which is where we are primarily focused right now with our 2 assets, Escalones and Cristal. And I'll talk about our flagship Escalones in a second. Chile is the #1 copper mining jurisdiction. They produce 20 to 30% of the world's copper at any given year and have about 30 to 40% of the world's copper reserves and resources from a single country. So they are very critical in the copper industry, largely due to the geology and geography of the nation, which lies along the fault line that created the Andes and other mountain structures down there. So Escalones is our flagship asset, and it's in the Santiago region of Chile. So it's in an area of good infrastructure, very close to a major development, but also being far enough away from the city where that's not a concern at all. You can see there's a number of mines in the region already, including El Teniente, which is the world's largest underground copper mine and is owned by Codelco, which is the world's largest copper producing company. We are 35 kilometers east of El Teniente, so they'd be somewhere in the white area to the southwest of our property. So this property has, within this orange circle here, 25,000 meters of drilling in 53 holes. So we have an established resource, which I'll talk about in a second. We also have immediately to the south of that established resource, a supergene target, which we call the Mancha Amarilla. And to the northeast, we have 3 other copper porphyry targets that easily have the potential to be as large as the main resource is already. So what is a copper porphyry? Quite simply, it's where you find the largest copper deposits around the world. They are primarily the result of volcanic or seismic activity over millions of years ago. And that is why Chile has these large deposits. And that's why we have Escalones, which is a very large deposit as well. I will get a little bit technical with this slide. This is the most technical I will get. I'll try to keep it brief. There's 2 primary ways that copper is produced globally. One is through sulfide flotation and one is through oxide heap leaching. Now, every copper porphyry deposit, for the most part, has a very thick sulfide layer deep below the Earth's surface, and then an oxide cap that is about 100 meters to 300 meters thick on top. So that material is oxidized copper sulfide ore that has been changed to copper oxide. And what does that mean? It changes the way that the material is processed, and it changes the chemistry by which it's processed as well. And that has very significant implications on the economics and viability of a project. So 70% of the world's copper is produced via sulfide flotation. This process is very expensive to develop. We're talking billions of dollars to put a substantially sized scale mine into production, as well as high operating costs with low margins. You require 4 times as much water consumption as a comparable oxide heap leach process per pound of copper, and they emit 60% more greenhouse gases from start of mining to production of copper through this process. You also have to ship a concentrate to a smelter, usually somewhere in Asia like China or South Korea. Only then do you get useful copper that you can use in the marketplace. Oxide heap leaching produces about 30% of the world's copper. It's not a new and innovative technology. Neither of these technologies is. It's well established, but it's so small scale because most of the large copper oxide deposits around the world have been mined already since they've been near the Earth's surface. Why is that the case? They're easier to develop, lower initial capital, much lower infrastructure requirements. You can build a sizable oxide heap leach operation for under $500 million, compared to, again, $1 to $2 billion minimum on the flotation side. The operating costs are substantially lower because the infrastructure and processing requirements are lower, and the processing is simpler. You simply use sulfuric acid, which is a byproduct of the smelting process of sulfide flotation. You dissolve the copper, then you extract the copper through using electricity in a cleaner and greener process, gives you 100% pure usable copper local to your mine. Already traders pay a premium for grade A cathode, and they are starting to pay a premium, the manufacturers are, for greener and cleaner sourced copper, and that is only going to grow in the future as this becomes a new reality. So how does that tie back to Escalones? Well, when we picked up this asset, we had a sulfide resource. The previous owners of the property were focused on that layer that was below the oxides. We, over the last year or so, did some work, metallurgical work, that allowed us to understand this resource from the oxide potential by focusing in on the oxide layer that I mentioned. And what we found is that we actually have one of the largest, actually the largest, copper oxide resources in Chile at the moment in exploration and development. 426 million tons, grading at 0.37% copper. Now, if you don't follow the copper mining space, these numbers may not mean a lot to you. So I do have some benchmarks for you. These are mines that are oxide heap leach operations that are in production today, held by majors like Codelco, Glencore, Anglo American. You may have heard of some of these companies. Our grades and our tonnages are right within the ballpark. In many cases, our grades are better than these mines that are producing cash for these majors right now. Also, as sulfide operations, none of these assets would be in production right now. The grades would simply be too low grade or too low tonnage to be viable, and they would not, and the cost would be too tremendous. This here is the most important slide in the deck right now. If you come back next week when we have some news that I'll talk about in a second, this slide will not exist because we'll have a more precise comparison out. But until then, we have a benchmark company. They're called Marimaca Resources. They are a Canadian junior mining company as well, based in Vancouver, with an asset in Chile called Marimaca. They have what's called a preliminary economic assessment, which they produced in 2020 in September, so relatively recently. The PEA is the first step in understanding the economic viability of a mining development. In their PEA, they had a mine plan that called for 131 million tons, grading at 0.47%. We have an available resource that is 3 times larger than their tonnage, and our grade is a little bit lower, but in total, 240% more copper in the ground than they do. Again, processing with the same type of process. Their initial capital was 285 million. Our PEA, which will be released sometime next week, is going to be coming in at under 500 million, as you would expect, because we are roughly twice the size of Marimaca. Their PEA pre-tax NPV at $3.15 per pound copper. Remember, we're at about 440 right now, with 757 million US. And on January 17th, they were trading at 6 times our multiple right now, 6 times. What is the difference? We do not have a PEA out, but again, we've been working on that for the last few months, and that is due to be delivered next week. And we are very excited about that. So I'm trying to get the message out to as many people as possible, including yourselves. We are a very new story in the market. This company has only been publicly traded for about a year. In the mining space, these types of stories take 5 to 10 years in some cases to develop. We're acting very rapidly to show that we understand how to develop a copper asset, and that's what we're bringing to the table. If you, this here is a chart that shows very clearly that Escalones is the largest copper oxide project in exploration and development in Chile right now. And that is even compared to majors such as Codelco and KGHM. KGHM is one of the largest copper producing companies out of Poland. We are larger than them, almost twice as much as these large deposits as well. Not only do we have the main Escalones resource, but we also have the Mancha Maria target to the south of the main resource. So if you look at this map, you can see the drilling that's been done to date, and we expect drill permits to come in for the Mancha Maria within the next 2 weeks. So it's a very exciting time, lots of news flow coming for the company. Those drill permits will allow us to drill this Mancha Maria, and our thesis, our geologists believe that this resource is actually double this current size. Why do we believe that? If you see here on the far left in the background, that is the Mancha Maria, the splotchy mark there of orange. That is just a continuation of the main resource. So by drilling this lithocap, we can effectively double this resource in size, make the economics even more fantastic than they already will be, and give us more options for development. And that's not even including those 3 other targets to the northeast, which I mentioned on the previous map. So that is Escalones. As Donald mentioned, we also just recently closed a transaction for Zonia. Zonia is a brownfield development in Arizona, another amazing copper mining jurisdiction. This project was brownfield, has already had been pre-stripped by the previous operator in the 60s and 70s. They shut down due to low copper prices and has not been in operation since then. 50,000 meters has been drilled on this property. It's well understood. A preliminary economic assessment was carried out on this asset 4 years ago at $200 million initial capital. At $3 copper, it was a 200 million after-tax NPV. At $4 copper, it's 450 million after-tax NPV. After-tax first-year free cash flow of 150 million, payback in a little bit over a year. We also have the opportunity to expand this resource because in that PEA that was carried out 4 years ago, they constrained the resource and cut off about 50 million tons. It's about 100 million tons in the PEA. There's 50 million tons, so about 50% more can be added to the next PEA that we will be doing to make this project larger and more attractive. We also have a northeast target here that has had no drilling done on it yet to date, with 300 to 500 million tons of available material once we get some drills up there. People ask me, how is it possible that World Copper has these two fantastic assets? I was discussing with a major broker in Vancouver, investment banker whose fingers on pulse of the mining industry. He said, I've never heard of your story. What you just told me is fantastic. We need to start talking, put you in front of our analysts. It is that new of a story that it hasn't been picked up yet. And they are very interested, as every institution is, when we get around to telling them about it. So to put it all together, this company has a market cap of about 70 million Canadian or 42 million pounds, to 43101. So that's the study you need in Canada to that's been vetted by independent engineers and geologists to prove the value of your assets. 43101 backed assets with significant exploration upside. We're a significant undervalued opportunity. For people who are hearing about it for the first time, I encourage you to take a look into us and potentially invest. And I'm happy to answer any questions now as well.
Gosh, Nolan, that was incredible. What a pitch.
Thank you.
That was extraordinary. You're not shy at coming forwards, Nolan.
No.
You absolutely believe in this, don't you?
I absolutely do. And you know, some people say, when I tell them, they say he's an engineer. Engineers, they don't bullshit, right? We excuse my language.
That's so true. Yes,
it's not in me.
Miners.
Yeah, it's not in me to exaggerate. I've worked on many studies in my career. The one that we will be delivering very soon, anticipating next week sometime, is certainly the best one I've ever had the pleasure of working on, and one of the largest and best ones that I've ever seen, especially when you consider the scale that Escalones is at. There's some very large projects in Chile, and of course we have the largest copper oxide project in Chile. You don't get to be the largest anything copper related in Chile unless you really do have something special.
Yes, that's a very good point. Preliminary economic assessment.
Yes.
Over here, is that what they call a pre-feasibility study?
No, it would be a scoping study level.
So scoping study.
Yeah, pre-feasibility would be next.
So it's a PEA as an early days thing.
Correct. Yes.
Fantastic. What does your balance sheet look like, Nolan?
We have about $3 million of cash on hand at the end of the year. We also have $25 million worth of warrants that are in the money at 60 cents Canadian. We're trading at 80 cents right now. We have a number of warrant holders who've committed to exercising and holding their shares because they believe in financing and potential raises at a higher valuation. So we are well financed in the moment to basically answer the question that usually comes around that question. We are exploring the opportunity of bringing on strategic partners who would add clout and visibility to the story, but in the near future, we don't anticipate having a need to raise any capital.
So you're slightly taking the words out of my mouth, but
yes,
you've answered it all in there. So
I get asked those questions all the time.
So what does the future hold? You know, will it be a strategic partner? I mean, it's a lot. Escalones is a fantastic thing, but it's years and years of grind away.
Yeah.
So, how did you get yourself there? How did you fund yourself there so that you can make that mind come true?
Yeah, so we're not doing anything that's any different than the Canadian junior mining model and really the junior mining model globally. These major companies need small companies like us to do the exploration work and find the capital and raise it and you know, take the risk so that they don't have to. And then of course they either come in later and do a joint venture or acquire the project. Or in the case of Escalones, we actually have a very fundable project for a copper project of this scale, under $500 million, is right within the junior to medium-sized space for development. It's something that I could raise money with a mixture of debt or a capital raise, or even selling a royalty or something like that. But at this point, we are just putting the economics out there, de-risking the asset, making it as big and as valuable as possible. We're very cost effective with our capital distribution. We've done a lot with a very limited amount of money so far. With the money that we have going forward, we will be expanding the resource, and we're always open for business for major players to step up and step in. And I think if you take a look at the space right now, as I mentioned, it's becoming harder and harder to find these deposits. Many of them are deeper at depth. They cost $2 to $3 billion to put in place. They use more water. Permitting is a nightmare. They're going further afield to jurisdictions that are challenging to operate in, such as Africa. And so really what we are bringing to the table is a lot of intangible competitive advantages as well that will make it very enticing for a major to take a serious look at.
Are you in discussions with miners or majors, as you call them?
Certainly we are at all times. We had a number of conversations in an earlier round of marketing before we put out our updated resource statement. These guys move on a 6-month to a 1-year time frame before they circle back. So many of them probably haven't even realized that we've changed to our oxide story and have a very impressive one. And also that once we start getting more independent analyst coverage out there, and once this PEA is out, that will spur some of that. I think that they'll start to take notice and they'll circle back immediately. But we do have ongoing discussions regularly. Josh
Cole is not so impressed with Escalones, I'm afraid. But the good news is he's not in charge of the company, and you are. He says it's too far. Escalones is too far to export it to the coast.
Yeah, we don't. But
you're too far from any port. You have to be massive for it to be economically viable, he says.
No, but see, that's the thing that people don't understand. Even people who apologies to Josh, I believe, who follow the mining space. Copper oxides do not require concentrate transportation. We don't produce a concentrate. We're not shipping anything by water. It's all comes out as 100% pure, clean copper cathode. Every country in the world uses copper cathode in manufacturing for their industries, especially Chile. And even if we are taking it to port, instead of a 30% copper concentrate, we're moving 100% copper in nice, clean, stackable plates. That's why you get at least a 1% premium for it already. So I do have that conversation with many people who say they've been following copper mining for 30 years. And then they ask me, what are you going to do with your concentrate? There is no concentrate. That is the oxide advantage and story.
Would you sell it in Chile or
sell it to metals buyers in Chile or globally who may be interested? Many of them are looking up to lock up supply, and especially if they can get it in cathode form, they get that's why they pay a premium. They get a premium for it as well.
Great. Could you talk a wee bit more about the price of copper for your particular product from Escalones?
Yeah, so
you're almost top of the market, you said.
Yeah, so copper is trading at about 440, I believe, right now per pound. Hit an all-time high of 480 last year. Right now, supply is tight. If you track the London Metals Exchange, at any given moment, there's a slight surplus of copper. But there is anticipation of some large mines coming online this year that may help to ease those pressures. But after that, for the next 2 or 3 years, and then certainly after that, there's a big question mark of where copper is going to come from. I will also say that my experience in the copper market and very large mining developments is they never meet their production targets, especially for new mines. And so if you think about it, if we're walking on a knife's edge of production and we are already hoping for these mines to come online, assume a 6 to 1 year delay to their production reaching full capacity. And in that time, demand inexorably takes a 2 to 3% step up. From this point on, copper will always be a step behind. There is no surge of copper coming in the near future. I'll refer back to this chart here that shows mines with high, medium, and low probability of coming online. By about 2024, we do not have an answer. That is not something you can make up an answer for. Maybe there's substitution metals, but copper is just so perfect for what we need it for that any other substitution will be inefficient or more costly or more wasteful on an environmental front, which is why we're using a lot of copper for decarbonization and electrification to begin with.
Do you see World Copper as an explorer with an exit strategy, or an explorer developer with a slightly later exit strategy?
I see us
I
see us as a development company, exploration and development. So both, as you mentioned, we've got impressive people on our team, including a gentleman named Marcelo Awad, who's the former CEO of Antofagasta Minerals. I think they're the third largest copper producing company in the world, Chilean based. He was their CEO for 8 years, and he took that company from $4 billion to $20 billion, developed 3 mega projects under his stewardship. We also have a gentleman named Krzysztof Napierla. He's an exploration and development person from KGHM. He was our KGHM's general manager in Chile and South America. So we have already the people who've seen it done, who've put mines into production, including myself and Krzysztof and Marcelo, who financed them. So we are offering that as an opportunity for World Copper to advance, so that we are not just a one-trick pony that has to explore, has to rely on somebody to come in and take us out. We're using the experience that we have to create value for shareholders. And at some point, there may be an exit, or at some point, we put our mines into production a number of years from now at an attractive
You might
capital.
potentially take it all the way to a mine.
It's always, you always have to present that as a possibility. I can't rule it out. Otherwise, I lose a lot of people who would just say, I want to show viability, right? Or else, why am I investing in here?
It's a game of chess. It's a game of chess.
Exactly.
Robert Litt wants to know what the Chilean, what's the working environment? What's the political environment, the in-country risk? All those kind of wise words.
So Chile has a new president-elect. His name is Boric, and the market has generally responded very well to him since he has won the election. The US dollar about 2 weeks ago was at a 3-month low against the Chilean peso. He's made some very attractive cabinet appointees that the business community is very supportive of. So in general, he's well received, well liked. And what he has positioned himself for mining development is he's in favor of greener development. He's not opposed to mining development in general. And of course, you can't be in Chile, which derives so much of its GDP from mining developments. So I think it actually bodes well for World Copper, because we have a copper oxide project that is cleaner and greener, just like that Marimaca project that I mentioned. So it has a lower environmental footprint. It doesn't require a tailings storage facility. It doesn't require building a port facility, to go back to one of the earlier questions. Some of these mines have to create ports on the coast out of whole cloth that never existed before, and put in rail lines to move their concentrate. We don't have that problem. So I think that we position ourselves to be that type of development, that we will rise to the top of our peer group when governments like Boric are looking to promote mining development in Chile. We're very receptive to that. We're a very on-trend company. We have a young management team such as myself who understands this. Copper is going to play a significant role in decarbonization and the so-called green economy of the future. And it's not going to be enough to just say we contribute to copper production, we make copper, and then but who cares about the pollution and the environmental impact we have along the way? We are looking to promote a greener and cleaner solution to that as well.
I'm gonna have to stop you there, Nolan.
Okay.
Tom Davidson very quickly says he can't buy. He's obviously tried, but he can't buy. You're not listed in either Hargreaves Lansdowne, which is one of the big trading platforms over here, or IG. So collectively, internet, let's find a solution. How do we buy shares in WCU and then tell everybody else? Because I think we've whetted people's appetite.
Thank you.
Thank you for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Donald. Thank you, everyone, as well.
And on to our final company for the night, with apologies for being slightly late to you. CleanTech Lithium are set to float on the London AIM market shortly, and they represent an interesting investment opportunity given the projected demand for lithium as a battery metal. CTL are a lithium explorer and developer from Chile again, specializing in direct lithium extraction from immature salars in the Andes which were previously thought unsuitable for lithium extraction. If all goes well, they're targeting production in just 2 years' time, which it's an extraordinary time frame from at least one of the 2 lithium projects. I am joined by Aldo Boitano, CEO at CleanTech Lithium. Welcome, Aldo.
Thank you. It's a chilly night.
It's a chilly night. Yes, it's February in London. What do you think? It's a chilly night.
Yeah. Well, CleanTech Lithium. Thanks for the invitation. CleanTech Lithium.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, as you said, aims to produce zero or near.
Do you want to push your screen just a little bit back, Aldo, so that we can see all of your head?
Okay. There.
Your head is looking beautiful. Off you go.
Okay, well, CleanTech Lithium aims to produce zero or near zero emission lithium with minimal environmental impact. This is a clear advantage in the fast-growing European market and increasingly so in other markets as well. As you all know, battery-grade lithium is a core component of batteries needed for the rapidly growing electric vehicle market, which is seeing significant demand-supply imbalance. And because of this, the price of lithium has increased 6 times in the last year alone. We have something unique. It's a rare opportunity to gain exposure to 2 lithium projects located within the heart of a very prestigious production area, the Lithium Triangle in South America. The assets are located in basins that we entirely control by CleanTech Lithium. This affords significant potential development and operational advantages, and particularly for something we started from day one in 2017, direct lithium extraction. The projects offer to investors near-term potential with the first production, as you say, Donald, in 2024, compared that to other projects that will take more time. The work programs of the company will be able to undertake on the back of the fundraise, offer considerably opportunity of increase on resource estimation and potential value points and news flow for investors. This is where we are. This is our 2 projects at the interior of Copiapó, a mining district. We intend to produce lithium using, and we'll expand into this direct lithium extraction in some of the future slides. DLE also combined with the use of renewable energy means the overall process will have a very low CO2 footprint, this potentially providing a critical market advantage. The conventional production of lithium from brines using large evaporation ponds deplete the aquifers of the Salt Lake basins, the underground subsurface waters, and this impact indigenous or local communities. And on the other side, about something Australia has been leading, the hard rock lithium mines have the direct environmental impact of large open cast mining operations, and that require energy intensive processing, which has high associated CO2 emissions. The company is seeking to raise around £6 million. I am here in London, arrived from Chile a couple of nights ago. In total, and making an admission into AIM and will make us the only lithium listed direct lithium extraction company in the AIM market. Of the 6 million that we aim to raise, we already raised around 40% via the existing and new institution and larger investors who have already committed with Fox Davis, our broker, in 2 days of reaching last week existing investors, plus 2 days of a roadshow. Again, 40% of that total has been reached. So probably we will go around to try to raise up to 10 million pounds. We invite you all later on this week and throughout the next week to invest and contact Fox Davis and/or when we open up the market, the retail market via primary bid. Fox Davis capital in 12 months is 1.05 pounds and 2.6 in 2 years. You can reach in their website on the broker's report, a very certified specialist, Gaia's King, has put out a public report on this. Again, we have had so far excellent reception. I've been working around the clock, early in the morning till late with a team of people from Fox Davis and our own people from CleanTech. We expect to get in excess of 10 million pounds, bringing major new institutions coming in the UK, Australia, New York. Let's move on. This is, again, the invitation and the opportunities. The board and senior management have a lot of mining, local and financial market experience. Steve Kessler, our chairman, started and was the first CEO of the largest, now the largest copper mine of the world, Escondida, and then started the second largest mining copper of the world, Collahuasi. Jonathan Morley, our CFO, Gordon Stein, who's also sits on the board as a non-executive director of Zephyr, who presented earlier, and people from local people, Pedro Torres and Marcelo Bravo, who have a combined a century of experience, having already worked on virtually every major salar operations in existence. My own background is a civil industrial engineer with an MBA from the University of North Carolina, a doctoral degree of the University of Pepperdine. I have plenty of experience in mining and solar project development. And the solar is something we're looking as a source of renewable energy for the projects. And I've been a pioneer in Chile's solar industry and involved in the deployment of solar projects with a combined output of more than 800 megas. This is the project's Laguna Verde overview. It's a steep valley basin. We had a first mover advantage. Nobody was looking in 2017 and semi-mature salars with low grade grades, and also nobody was looking at direct lithium extraction. Again, both projects are 60 to 80 kilometers apart, and the projects are located within 300 kilometers of road to the mining center of Copiapó in the Atacama region of Chile. So again, a major mining district. They're well located for infrastructure, including roads and renewable power, and Chile benefits from having one of the world's greenest national grids. Both projects, for those fans of high altitude, I'm a mountaineer as well, are located at altitudes over 4,200 meters. They have no indigenous or other communities within the basins. We have worked with the communities because they're a couple of hours away at a lower elevation. We drive through their communities to get to our sites, and we employ them and work with them on a daily basis to move the projects forward. We've done a York estimate on the subsurface of Laguna Verde. The chart here shows the resistivity being very low. That means there's a lot of saline subsurface aquifers, and that created the mix of the lagoon, which is this shallow portion here, created a measured resource of 77,000 tons of lithium, but it's the deep 400 meters and with this extrapolating the grade of the lagoon into the subsurface that has created something that one of the reasons we're getting listed, 1.16 million tons of inferred resource estimate. But we consider this to be conservative. One, the grade was based on diluted superficial waters. The ore body dimensions follow the outline of the lake as opposed to the actual basin morphology. And this was calculated to a maximum depth of 400. And the geophysics suggests that this is deeper. We actually drilled, we finished last week, one for hole number 1, LD1, and we drilled down to 472 meters, and we found evidence of lithium and saline water all along the column. We are now waiting for the hole after we case it to reestablish the geochemistry on it and sampling it via a vertical Baylor system. Not surprisingly, also, we have temperatures of between 17 and 20 degrees Celsius. That's the evidence of geothermal water. Francisco Basin, we're resuming the drilling as we speak, again for holes. What this will mean to investors, that the resource numbers will go up and will hit the market with this catalyst events as the resource goes up. We're also working with the government on the production permit, with the outgoing government and the incoming government. It was very interesting to listen to the previous presentation talking about how the new government wants clean mining or cleaner, more sustainable ways of exploiting natural resources, and we're in the same boat, and we received very good appraisal from the incoming authorities. We're gonna spend the money we raised pre-IPO and post-IPO money in all the environmental impact studies, environmental permits, scoping studies, pre-feasibility, final feasibility. What is happening, it's with all the admission documents, once they're public, we've worked with major companies around the planet, very serious, who have developed other projects, and we have been working and build as we receive the IPO money will put that to work. Of the potentials into development projects, we're the only ones without committed offtake agreements in the world. We have had significant interest from international household name companies and would welcome an arrangement in the near future as part of our marketing and financing. We're fully funded up until the commercial, the beginning of the engineering and construction and going into production. Direct lithium extraction represents a major improvement in the sustainability of lithium extraction. Our proprietary technology is a mix of a mechanical and chemical process. I would not get so technical, but it means a mix of nanofiltration, absorption via an exclusive resin, reverse osmosis, forced evaporation that we need, resources, energy that are in the place of where we have both projects. And then after forced evaporation, ionic exchange to successfully have no evaporation ponds. No evaporation ponds means you can use less water, less impact on the environment. As we control the basins, we're the only ones that can re-inject this brine back on the subsurface aquifer. And this is what we've been doing with direct lithium production. We already have concentrated lithium up to 15,000 parts per million, and successfully produce the first part of the process. We're going to scale up as we move onto this process with a pilot plan aiming to produce 10 tons of battery grade lithium per month in the next 6 months. This pilot scale production will be a critical stepping stone on the path to becoming a commercial scale lithium producer. Engineering, construction, and operation relating to the pilot plan will be over a period of 1 year. This work will be undertaken by Beyond Lithium, leading consultant in direct lithium extraction, who has been working successfully on listed projects owned by Canadian firms in Argentina. And this process developed for the project is going to be patented by us, and we will retain full rights of these patents. This is where we are. I developed some of these solar renewable projects. There's in Francisco Basin, in the corner of our tenements, we're 1 kilometer away from a substation developed by Kinross originally, and we're 60 kilometers away in the case of Laguna Verde from another existing substation. Nolan, in the previous presentation, referred to the fact that Chile is the largest producer of copper. Well, Chile is also the world's second largest producer of lithium. Chile is among the highest income countries in Latin America, has the highest investment grade rating in the region. It's among the most economically and socially stable nations in South America, and leads the region in ranking for competitiveness, economic freedom, openness to investment, and low perception of corruption. Again, highly outgoing and incoming supported government due to the importance of mining to the Chilean economy. The mining law is similar to other prominent jurisdictions such as Australia and Canada. And all this excellent infrastructure with power station, transmission lines, and highways give us the possibility of the direct lithium extracted lithium go directly into port. We have one of the world's cleanest grid power and world's best region for solar energy. We also aim to produce on-site solar and geothermal potential. You've seen the growth of the market and the need of sustainable and traceable products to sustain growth in the market. And we've done, this is part of the work done by Fox Davis, evaluation and sector comparison. The simplest method to compare valuation in the lithium sector is to use enterprise value per ton of resource. Based on this measure, the average for the sector is over $90 US per ton, based just on Laguna Verde. All our listing comes with just one of the two projects. Francisco Basin could outdo Laguna Verde as we move forward in the development of this project. So it's 1.1 million tons. So CleanTech has an enterprise value per ton of US $27. We think we can go up to 4 million tons of lithium. There's a very large upside based on this measure. We could go up to 5-10 times to match the peer group. Again, invitation to write ctlithium@foxdavis.com and get on their website. The work program of the company, the use of proceeds is making us having 2 extensive drilling programs in parallel. This will undertake us to the back of the fundraise. Again, offers considerably opportunity to increase on the resource estimation, a potential valuation point, and news flow for investors. The primary use, 92% actually, of the proceeds will be to execute the exploration programs, the DLE pilot plan, environmental permitting, feasibility studies, and to provide the company with general working capital. To wrap it up, again, this is a rare opportunity to gain exposure to 2 lithium projects. We welcome you to invest. You'll be part of this journey and be part of the first and only listed direct lithium extraction company on the AIM market. So welcoming questions.
Okay, so is it too early to ask when will you actually IPO?
Yeah, our aim is to close the book by next Wednesday, and then inform the market on next Friday, and be listed officially around March 1st.
And that IPO, that's available only to institutional investors, am I correct?
Yeah, right now, but in the next couple of days, we're going to open up to primary bid, and that's the main focus of being here too in this webinar. So
you're trying to raise £6 million.
It's going to be more likely to 10.
Good Lord! Oh, good Lord! And how much of that on primary bid? Do you have a target? Is it not possible to say?
No.
Not possible to say. That's fine. I realize this is all very sensitive territory in terms of FCA and so on. So let's. I shall not push.
No, thanks.
So we've got a gentleman called Carl Denver.
Okay.
Carl Denver is clearly considering investing in you, and yes, and he says, what does that money get spent on? Well, you've already told me it gets spent on resource upgrades, pilot plant construction, and so on.
Exactly.
How sure are you of getting the CEOL? Now, I misunderstood. I didn't understand what the CEOL was. So tell me what that is, first of all.
CEOL is a special contract that allows the government to give a production permit to a company. And we're very confident that we see this as a very low risk. The process has already passed through the first 2 stages, and the feedback to date has been encouraging. The applications are expected to take around 12 months. So we got no reason this to be a concern. We also don't need it until 2024 that we plan it. And
why do you not need it until 2024?
Because you need it to sell lithium. You don't need it to develop.
You're not going to be. Does that mean you think you can be producing lithium by 2024?
Yep. That's the beauty of direct lithium extraction. In evaporation ponds takes 12 to 18 months to develop the evaporation ponds. It's 6 to 7 to 8 ponds in a batch process. You have flooding. You have any mineral precipitating in the wrong way. You need to start the whole process again. So
you have no ponds.
We have no ponds.
It's a different process.
Different process. It's been around for 20 years too. It's not completely new. I mean, there's a production in Argentina, Livent produces 20,000 tons per year without ponds, and but it wasn't necessary. Most of the lithium come out of brine came from high grade salars like Salar Atacama that holds half of the world reserves. But nowadays, if you go back to the peer evaluation work done by Gaius King from Fox Davis, the new lithium from brine will come from lower grades, and all of them will have to go to the direct lithium extraction process. We just started earlier, both getting the properties, getting the basins, and testing and working around the technology.
I understand that even for the larger producers, it's actually unusual to have an entire basin to yourself. Not only do you have an entire basin to yourselves, you have 2 entire basins to yourself.
Yes.
Yes. So you're just being greedy, Aldo.
No. We see it as an advantage. We're very happy of the reception we're getting. I think it's a new path, not only for us, but for Chile and Argentina and our neighbors, that you can have lithium production, but at the same time be as friendly as you can to the environment, having as lower emission as possible, and at the same time be an attractive investment point for the people listening to this webinar.
Okay, so let's jump in, and I'll take some of these questions cold. Are you ready for this, Aldo?
I am.
Why is coming to market being put back? It was expected to be early Q1, but yesterday on LinkedIn, you stated to be put back to March. So that's from Josh Cole.
Yeah. We wanted to do it in those dates. We actually had to put all the board came in, a lot of controls in place. We were having to audit everything, CPRs, a lot of things. And especially originally we were incorporated in Australia, and we closed down those ventures, and we finally, just doing it as we speak, incorporated in Jersey. So all that, and then Christmas and New Year. So we didn't hit the first mark. It was like mid-December, and we said, okay, then we'll restart mid-January and the beginning of February.
Can I say to Josh, it's perfectly normal for IPOs to slide back a little bit. That's what they do. That is just what they do.
Yeah. By the way, in the pre-IPO, we raised in like this, with the good work of Fox Davis, we raised £4 million. And that's what got us to this point, and that's why we're drilling, and at the same time doing an IPO.
Now you're up to both and 10 billion and a primary bid just to come up. So absolutely fantastic.
Yes,
so Josh would like more clarification. Being so close to Copiapo, do you plan to offload the product to metal specialists in Copiapo to shorten the company's supply chain, or would you process in Copiapo and ship from somewhere like Port of Valparaiso or San Antonio?
No. Our idea is to process the lithium up in the basins, and to take down the on site, and then take it to the port of Caldera, take it to those ports. Of course,
there are no environmental implications of that.
Nope. I don't want to talk about other companies, but the lithium out of brine and other places has 4% of lithium and 96% of impurities. So basically you're having a truck who's taking from the high place in the Andes, and it's taking 96% of impurities down closer to the ocean. And then it needs to produce battery grade lithium, 3 more tons of products like as sodium carbonate and lime and other reagents and other products. And that
so you're flipping that the process entirely around and doing it on site and being the good guys.
As good as we can.
Oh, that sounds pretty good. Fair.
And we haven't talked about. I briefly said it during the presentation. Is the reinjection. 85% of the spent brine, clean of reagents, is going to be re-injected in this basin. We're going to run full hydrogeological models, so the spent brine can speed up the process of extracting lithium, and at the same time stop the depletion of the subsurface aquifers.
Okay, Peter Hodgkins asks, how many tons of LCE are you targeting per annum?
As we mature both properties, and that's the application we've made to the government, we think we're going to be producing 20,000 tons per lithium per each, up to 40. The direct lithium extraction plants that we've quoted and that we have a preliminary engineered, they're scalable and moldable. We'll probably start at 10,000 tons per annum in each property, then move to 15 and up to 20. That's our goal, and produce 40% of the world's lithium.
And so what do you have to actually squeeze into that 2-year time frame? Feasibility studies and so on and so forth?
Yes, feasibility studies, the scoping, it's going to be public. We're working with world-class providers. Worley Parsons is the one.
Lots of news flow. Lots of news flow.
That's the idea, to give Fox Davis and ourselves 2 or 3 news flows per year.
Okay, Keith Coggle asks, how favorable is the new left-wing government, and have they changed the constitution? Things went badly in Venezuela, he says.
Okay, good question. We actually start talking to both parties after the first round of elections, and they need investments, and the government is not going to spend, I don't know, $400–800 million on mining projects and larger, and both metals and non-metals, and then have the risk as all miners have of not going forward with the projects.
Let's just try and squeeze in 1 or 2 questions more before we go.
Yeah, the convention.
You proved very popular.
Yeah, the convention needs 2/3 of ratification of any article. Today came out the news in Chile that they only have 4 more months to go, and that they need to wrap up those things that have clearly path of going forward. One of the boundaries of the conventional talk is that they need to comply with all international treaties that Chile has subscribed. So don't be afraid of the news you read and the news you read about the convention talks and everything. We moved from $4,000 per capita income 30 years ago and more than 50% poverty to where we are today with a life expectancy higher than the US and many indicators. And that's because we agreed to disagree and to plan a country together, and it's always been center left or center right what moves the country forward.
Okay, Keith Coggle once again. How proven is DLE given the negative feedback that a US Canadian lithium company has had?
Okay, good question. First, Livent. Second, our work with Beyond Lithium directly and indirectly in this Salar in Argentina. But most importantly, we've been backed up from day one by Sunresin, who has 3 projects in China producing lithium out of low-grade lakes. And they're very open to provide us from one end the resin and on the other end construct an APC plant. But we have something that the countries and the projects you mentioned don't have. We have a very favorable magnesium to lithium ratio. Magnesium it's a killer. You can't go above 15 times of magnesium per lithium. I mean, in Francisco Basin is 1:6, in Laguna Verde is 1:9, and that's one of the big reason that those projects have failed.
Each salar is different, is that right?
They are similar but different. Yeah, just like copper, you need to fine tune everything. Need to get the boron away, the nanofiltration, for example, at the beginning of the process gets away a lot of the magnesium and calcium. It's a lot of work. and trust me, we've been doing it. We send samples to California, Canada, to a couple of companies, China, France, Texas, etc. And then start doing it ourselves.
Okay, fantastic. Daniel from Fox Davies tells us that he's roughly expecting 10% from the primary bid, which is very useful to know. Somewhere between 600,000 and $1 million. But I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. So where should people go if they want to participate? Primary bid. Yes, look, register on primary bid.
Yep.
Fantastic. Okay, Aldo. I have to say that was fantastic.
Thank you.
People have been saying that's the most likely investment I've seen on all my webinars. How can they say such a thing?
Well,
all my companies are likely investments, Josh.
Yeah, well, we're gonna now go very happily to the next couple of rounds of people around the planet. We still have to go with investors as we hang up.
Well, you can tell them that you did very well on London Southeast and that the audience thought you were terrific.
Thank you, the audience, and thank you, Donald, for the welcoming and for this opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you, Aldo. And that's it from us after another great night. Thank you very much to all our speakers for joining us live from around the world, and very much to their support teams for getting them there. I'd just like to personally thank the London Southeast team for their never-ending support as they continue to make this event work more and more smoothly. Thanks, everybody. Thanks again to Red Cloud Financial Services, who brought us World Copper. Nolan was pretty keen. He thinks he's onto a good thing. And Red Cloud Financial Services are our new Canadian partner, as explained. We look forward to a steady flow of interesting TSX, TSXV, OTC, OTCQB listed mining companies like World Copper, and we can't wait, I tell you. So that's one every webinar. Don't forget to look out for the Investing Matters podcast. It's available from all the usual podcasting platforms. Finally, a huge thank you to you all for being such a great audience and staying with us to the very end. And it most definitely wasn't bitter. We had the very lovely Aldebartano there. And we're really grateful for your time. And we look forward to doing it all over again, March the 8th. March the 8th is the date for the diary. Good night and stay safe.